Welcome to today's Explainer. Have you ever wondered how super quiet, isolated farming settlements suddenly turned into booming, loud, and crowded cities? Well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to time travel back to the 1850s in Canada West to see how some massive technological leaps sparked world-changing shifts for everyone, from escaped slaves to First Nations communities. Here are the stops on our historical journey today. We're going to look at the railway boom, new wealth and opportunities, the freedom movement, population surges and conflict, displacing First Nations, and finally, digging up the past. This is our map to uncover the incredible ripple effects of this really fast-paced era. Let's get going. First up, Section 1, the railway boom, the catalyst for change. Let's dive right in and discover what exactly sparked such rapid and dramatic change across the region. Picture this. It's the early 1800s. Your family farm is totally surrounded by thick, dark forests. Getting your crops to market means dragging them down incredibly slow, muddy roads, or relying on rivers. Everything is just so isolated. But then, something completely transforms Canada West in the 1850s. What huge invention do you think suddenly connected everyone and basically overnight accelerated the whole economy? You guessed it, a massive boom in railway construction. Just look at these dark, sprawling lines cutting across the land on this 1857 map. It was literally like a time machine for these people. For the very first time, rural farms were instantly connected to bustling ports and cities. Suddenly, you could zip crops and timber off to ports for export. Towns that were lucky enough to get a train stop, they blew up into massive centers of commerce almost instantly. Factories popped up to build farm equipment, and the entire landscape was just forever altered. Which brings us to Section 2, New Wealth and Opportunities, Building Success. Let's see how this railway boom created massive new wealth, especially for thousands of arriving immigrants looking for a fresh start. Look really closely at this super busy street scene. This is King Street in Toronto, and it gives us an amazing window into the mid-1800s. Do you spot that bright yellow horse-drawn cab right in the middle? That cab belonged to Thornton and Lucy Blackburn. They were Black Americans who escaped the absolute horrors of slavery in the United States and arrived in Canada West completely penniless. But in this new, booming economy, they worked incredibly hard, saved up, and actually built Toronto's very first cab service. And here is the crazy part about how successful they became. When Thornton died in 1890, he left an astonishing $17,000 to his widow, Lucy. Now, I know what you're thinking, $17,000 today might buy you a used car, right? But back then, it was an absolute fortune. We're talking about a time when most people lived on less than $200 for a whole year. Most people couldn't even dream of buying a house. And here the Blackburns built this massive legacy from absolute scratch. This amazing influx of new opportunity brings us to Section 3, the freedom movement, the Underground Railroad. It was a dangerous yet totally courageous pursuit of freedom. So while slavery was abolished in British North America back in 1833, it was still very much legal and absolutely brutal in the southern United States. To make things worse, in 1850, the U.S. passed the Fugitive Slave Act. This meant slave owners could actually hunt down escapees even in northern states where slavery was illegal. It was a terrifying reality. Because of this, up to 40,000 people fled the U.S. to British North America. They were helped by brave abolitionists, which are people completely dedicated to ending slavery. These folks urgently set up schools, newspapers, and secret safe housing networks. You've probably heard of this remarkable network. It became famous as the Underground Railroad. And you can't talk about the Underground Railroad without talking about Harriet Tubman. Her bravery is honestly just mind-blowing. Working as a conductor, she risked her own life making 19 secret missions deep into the southern states. She personally guided around 300 people to freedom in Canada West. And she did all of this while there was a huge reward posted for her arrest, with vicious slave hunters actively prowling the borders to kidnap people back. Take a second to look at how the artist captures this intense journey. If you look at the faces in this painting, you see this powerful mix of sheer relief at finally reaching safety in Canada West, but also extreme physical exhaustion. These folks traveled massive distances, usually freezing cold in the dead of night. It remains the largest freedom movement in North American history. Now, as we head into Section 4, Population Surges and Conflict, a Messy History, we see that all this rapid growth wasn't a perfect success story for everyone. because the population literally tripled from the 1840s to the 1860s, reaching almost 1.5 million people. Competition for jobs and land got incredibly fierce. Among the hundreds of thousands of new arrivals, Irish immigrants became the largest ethnic group in Canada West. Many arrived super poor, fighting for railroad and factory jobs. This sparked really deep, violent tensions between Irish Catholics and Irish Protestants. The Protestants formed a powerful secret society called the Orange Order. You can actually see them marching in this 1867 parade in downtown Toronto. They pretty much took over local politics. Just to give you an idea of their insane power, out of the 23 mayors who ran Toronto between 1845 and 1900, 20 of them were Orange men. And that dominance led to some intense street-level rivalries. Imagine just walking home from church with your family and being attacked purely because of the colors you wore. That's exactly what happened in 1857 to a man named Constable Devlin. He said, "The remarks they made was about the colors that I wore, and as soon as I turned around, I was knocked down and they all pounced upon me." It really shows us how intense these divisions were. Between 1849 and 1864 alone, there were 9 major riots in Toronto purely over these religious and social rivalries. Just wild. This brings us to a really tough part of the story. Section 5, Displacing First Nations, the dark side of growth. As the railways pushed further north and farmers demanded more and more space, the original inhabitants paid a terrible price. Many First Nations communities were actually incredibly adaptable. Groups like the Credit River Mississauga successfully adopted European styles of farming. And even though Indigenous leaders like Catherine Sutton helped their bands start highly successful farms, the immigrant settlers and big land companies just wanted that prime real estate. The Canadian government repeatedly forced band after band to sign away their assigned land to make room for European settlers. And get this, when some First Nations people tried to legally buy their own land back, the government completely refused to let them. This blatant unfairness actually sparked international outrage. In 1860, a British magazine called The British Friend published an article about it because the public was so shocked. The magazine reported that when these communities tried to purchase their own lots at the sale of Indian lands, their money was refused, stating there was no just reason why these Indians should be driven from place to place. It's a sobering reminder for our explainer today. The exciting expansion of the railways and cities came at a totally devastating, unfair cost to First Nations communities. All right, moving to our final stop today. Section 6, Digging Up the Past, History Under Our Feet. I have a practical question for you. How do we actually know all these intimate, day-to-day details about ordinary people who lived over 150 years ago? Well, sure, we have official documents, but to really know how they lived, we turn to an amazing field called public archaeology. Instead of just reading dusty old textbooks, modern historical detectives literally invite middle school students and community volunteers to go outside and dig up their own neighborhoods. They excavate sites, sometimes literally right in the middle of active school playgrounds, sifting through the dirt to piece together thousands of everyday artifacts. This is exactly how Dr. Carolyn Smards Frost, who you see pictured here, made a massive discovery. Remember Thornton and Lucy Blackburn, those wealthy cab owners who escaped slavery? Well, Dr. Frost and local students actually unearthed the original foundations of the Blackburns' home and barn, right beneath the playground of a Toronto public school. They found over 3,000 everyday items, proving these history-making figures lived right where kids were playing tag a whole century later. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. History isn't just something that happens in books or faraway places. It happened in your town, maybe even right in your schoolyard. So, what hidden, world-changing histories might be buried right beneath your own feet, just waiting for you to uncover them? Keep your eyes open and never stop digging for the truth.